got a series of questions that we've come up with and that have also been submitted by the university community through Facebook and Twitter. And then at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A from the audience. So keep in mind any pressing questions that come up for you. With that said, Daniel, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We're happy to do so. So let's start out at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and growing up?
Well, I'm a born and bred San Franciscan. There's very few of us that are actually born and raised here and then actually live here as an adult. But I grew up, I went to town school for boys, 9 years of all-boys school, which was interesting. and then high school at University High School, and then I went to Duke University. And the day I graduated from Duke, I ended up driving the next day up to New Jersey to interview on the Bill Bradley presidential campaign. And I had heard him speak at Duke, and he spoke about being part of something bigger than yourself. And here was a famous basketball player, a great senator, and a man that was about to run for president talking about wanting to be part of something bigger than himself, and he was a pretty big deal. And that spoke to me, and I wanted to go work for him, so I ended up in Iowa working on the Iowa caucuses and spent about 9 months living in Des Moines and traveling around the state, and that didn't end up the way we wanted it to end up. But it was the most amazing experience, and I ended up in New York City for 4 years, the last 2 of which were at the Robin Hood Foundation, which is focused on fighting poverty in New York City. And almost from the day that I got there, I knew that this model needed to be here in the Bay Area. And so I came back, went to grad school at Berkeley, got a master's in public policy, and launched Tipping Point in 2005. So we are 6.5 years old. So I don't know if that's where you were going with the question, but maybe I answered a lot of future questions that you have.
I think you laid the foundation pretty nicely. So going off that, one of our first questions from Facebook is from Frank Buckley. Is he in the audience here? Well, Frank works at USF in the counseling department, and going along with some of the things you just talked about, his question was, Dear Daniel, what captured your imagination to make addressing poverty a life's work? And I guess specifically, since we're in the Bay Area and you started off in Robin Hood, what about San Francisco?
I grew up in a family. I mean, I got lucky. I not only have 2 great parents, but I had 4 great parents. My stepfather has since passed away a few years ago now, but I grew up in a family that I grew up in very fortunate circumstances, and at every turn it was impressed upon me that I needed to be part of the community, that I needed to be part of giving back, and so for me it was taught at a very young age that I had a responsibility. I don't think it totally clicked for me until that Bill Bradley experience, and then Robin Hood cemented it. And I didn't want to start something that was about me. I didn't want to start something that was about any one person. I thought there needed to be a community of people here in the Bay Area, and the reason it's so important to me, as I said, I grew up here. You know, you can see poverty just about everywhere you look in the city if you open your eyes. It is actually easy to put blinders on and not see it if you want to. But, you know, everybody talks about driving up 6th Street, or if you go through the Tenderloin, or if you go through Western Addition, Bayview. We have enormous poverty right here in our own backyard. And for me, and for our board, and for our staff, we think that that's unacceptable. We have, you know, I heard this number when we got Tipping Point started, and it's ingrained in me all the time. And why we do this work is that there are 1.3 million people who are too poor to meet their basic needs right here in the Bay Area. That means we have 1.3 million people who are choosing between putting food on their table and paying their rent. I mean, we are in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest region, in the wealthiest country on the planet, and yet we are having people that can't meet their basic needs. So we have 65% dropout rates in some of our neighborhoods. We have, health disparities in Bayview that equal those of developing countries. It's unacceptable. And for me, for that to happen in my home region, in my home city, is something that I don't want to let happen.
No, absolutely. So when you came back here and you decided to make addressing poverty a life's work right here in San Francisco, what is it about Tipping Point that's unique that you wanted to establish something here rather than join an established organization?
We have a legacy of great philanthropy, great philanthropists, great families that have led the way. We have great community foundations that are endowed. I mean, we have 3 community foundations in the Bay Area that have nearly billion-dollar endowments. But we saw a need for a group that was focused just on poverty, that was focused on getting the money out the door now, and that was committed to getting that next generation involved. I think for too long we've kind of stood on the shoulder, or not stood on the shoulders, but leaned on people that have been doing so much, and we all know, the big names in the Bay Area that time after time have come through. We just had another great philanthropist pass away in Warren Hellman. I thought it was our time, and it was this generation's time to take a role and to lead in getting people involved. And so, we have many things that make us different. First is that our board at Tipping Point pays for all of our operating expenses. Every dollar we raise goes out the door in the following fiscal year. Last year, our first year, we raised $450,000 from 100 people. We went to $2 million the second year, $6 million the third year. We stayed even at $6 million during the crisis in 08, 09. We went from $6 million up to $11 million raised. It was a big jump. And then last year, in our 6th full year, we raised $12.6 million. So $12.6 million. Yeah. Should applaud everybody.
Let's clap for that.
So $12.6 million was raised from 1,000 people. First year was 100, so we've grown our donor base tremendously, and we're seeing that continue this year. But that means $12.6 million is going out the door. Not only that, we are connecting to the best resources in our community in the business sector: Hewlett-Packard, Cisco, Latham & Watkins, Gibson Dunn, 2 great law firms, providing additional support. So we actually added to that 12.6, we're adding 22 cents on every dollar. So if you give us $1, we're getting basically $1.22 out the door. We provide general operating support to the 35 organizations that we fund. Only 17% of foundations nationwide actually provide general operating support. We need to provide our groups with the ability to build infrastructure to have strong programs. Strong infrastructure leads to strong programming. Not enough funders think that way. And we don't have an end date on our funding. We don't say 3 years and you're out. So we're trying to not only stand on the shoulders of the great philanthropists and foundations that have come before us, but we're trying to improve the sector as well.
So I think you talked about it a little bit in that answer there, and you've raised an incredible amount of money, but at Tipping Point, you don't just write a check and walk away. You've said that before. Can you explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yep. We have no endowment, so we have a responsibility to get results, to figure out which groups are doing the work the best and to get the money to them, but then to help them get better, to help them become more effective, to help them get more efficient. Hewlett-Packard this year will provide, for the 3rd year in a row, will provide $600,000 worth of technology to our organizations, which we go out with HP and work on to find out which of our groups are ready for that type of donation. Like I said before, Latham and Gibson provide legal trainings for our organizations. We are committed to the importance of mental health at our organization, so we provide a program called the Mental Health Initiative. We have trainings every other month open to all of our organizations to come in and be trained on a different mental health issue. We write a check. On average now, it's about $175,000 in general operating to each of our groups. But that is just the beginning. Then we team them up with all of these resources that are available to them here in the Bay Area, and our program team is working constantly. Each of our program officers owns 8 to 10 of the organizations, and we want our groups to call us when something's not working. Mm-hmm. Instead of just telling us all the good news, we want them to tell us what's not working so we can help them fix it. This is a partnership. This is not we have the money and we're going to tell you what to do. This is we have these resources. How best can we support you in doing your work even better?
So it sounds like you have really high expectations for the organizations that you work with. Can you tell us a little bit about the vetting process that an organization goes through before you decide to work with them?
We have 4 portfolio areas. Housing and homelessness is one. Education, employment, and wellness. So we have 4 areas that we are looking to fund in. We also have a geographic focus. We fund all the way down to San Jose. We fund up to San Rafael and Marin, Richmond. We're in Contra Costa County. We're spread all over the urban areas of the Bay Area. We're looking for strong leadership. Just like in the for-profit world, just like in politics, you're looking to invest in leaders. Who are you going to vote for? You're going to vote for someone that you trust. So that's what we're looking for at our groups. Clean financials, a willingness to engage with a grant maker that doesn't just write a check and walk away. Some groups don't want a funder like us, and I can understand that. And then the fourth and really most important is, well, not most important, but really important is a willingness to measure what they're doing. Not only to prove what they're doing, but to improve what they're doing. So a group doesn't have to have all of their metrics figured out. They don't even have to have a database system implemented, but they need to be willing to get there. And we are helping by implementing Salesforce databases at our groups. We're making targeted investments and we know it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 1 year. We'll take 2-3 years to work with a group to implement one of these database systems. So those are kind of the 4 things we're looking for in a group that we want to partner with, and we want to partner with them for the long term. So we invest 93 hours of staff time on our end before ever writing a grant. That's how much due diligence we do before bringing a group into the portfolio.
That's just amazing. And I have another question here from Facebook. This one's from Vita Holguin, and it says, for newbies entering the field, and she's talking about philanthropy here, how do you ascertain which groups really can make a difference on an individual level? Like, you guys put in 93 hours of due diligence. Yeah. But if a student here wants to partner with an organization, wants to work for someone, how do we figure out if they're the right group?
Well, you can go to our website, tippingpoint.org. We do have all of our groups listed. That's one place to start. If you trust other funders and they have where they're funding, that's one way to do it. If you're a student, I'd go volunteer at the group. Get a sense. I mean, I've had friends, I've had students tell me they've gone and volunteered at an organization and they see that it's being run not that efficiently and things are not that smooth. And you all, if you're at this school, you're pretty smart. So there's you can talk about metrics all you want, but there's also the intuitive nature and whether or not you see clients coming back, or how's the executive director, how's the leadership team. So I would, if you're really wanting to get involved, the first place I would start would be volunteering.
So I want to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about your board, and specifically about NFL legend Ronnie Lott. There's a video going around that says that you really looked up to this guy. He was one of your heroes, and you had to go ask him to invest in your idea in your company. What was that like?
So we were having our Latham and Watkins was doing our incorporation documents while I was still in grad school. I was in my first semester of my second year, so it was December of 2004, and I got a call from my lawyer at Latham, who was doing all of our work pro bono, said that he had talked to another lawyer in his firm and had shared with him the story, and that guy had shared the story with his client, Ronnie. So Ronnie is represented by Latham, And Ronnie said that he wanted to have lunch with me, which was pretty cool. So we had lunch, and so I got there before Ronnie did. And as I was waiting for him, near the maitre d's table, and as we walked through this busy restaurant down near Union Square, he had to stop and have his picture taken about 9 times. So I was shaking by the time we sat down. And he had heard about Robin Hood, and I think he thought that, he may have thought that my dad may have been the owner of the Giants, the San Francisco Giants at one time, Bob Lurie, not my father. But whatever got him to the meeting, I'm glad he ended up there. But he had heard about the tipping point idea. He knew about Robin Hood, and literally before we got appetizers, he goes, "I'm in." So I had to go back and take my finals, and I had to really tell myself, okay, this is real. I have this very impressive man who also hits very hard. Tell me that we needed to get this thing going. And so in December of 2004, 6 months before, we had Ronnie Log on the board. And then what quickly followed was Chris James, who was a Robin Hood donor. I went and met with him and his wife and somehow conned them into joining. And then Katie Schwab was at that time working at Robin Hood, and I had known her from growing up, agreed. And so the 4 of us were the founding 4 board members. By the way, for those of you that know Ronnie Lott, as a football player, he's a much, much better human being.
So now it's 6.5 years later, and Tipping Point is really making a difference. But was there ever a specific moment for you when you realized that this organization was going to work and it was going to make a difference? And what was that realization like?
There's probably a few stories, but there's a group that we've kind of been referring to over the last couple months because it was shocking. And actually, Ronnie was there when I was talking to Sam Cobbs, who's the executive director of First Place for Youth. Sam runs a program in Oakland that works with emancipated foster youth or kids that are about to emancipate and helps them. These kids at 18 are left and they have no support, and First Place acts as that support. So they help them get into housing, they help them with getting back into the education system, help them with jobs. Sam, I walked into his office with Jean, who was the woman that helped me start it in terms of day-to-day. So it was just 2 of us for the first year running around. And we walked into Sam's office. He was replacing a founder ED, who was amazing. And the track record for someone replacing a founder ED and being himself a first-time executive director is not good. I think it's under 10% actually make it through a year of running an organization. So he's a first-time ED, and we said, Sam, this program is amazing. You are, we're very interested in you. We want to provide you with support around coaching, and, let's get this relationship started slowly. And he took the grant. He is now 6 years into running First Place for Youth. When we started with them, it was a $1.3 million budget. It's now an $11.5 million budget. They're serving triple, quadruple the number of kids. It's become a model program for not only the state of California, but the entire country. Sam has spoken at the U.S. Conference on Governors, of Mayors. They're going down to L.A. They've got the Edna McConnell Clark Foundation, which is just a top-notch foundation in New York City, pouring in excess of $1 million now. They are an organization that Sam tells us every major decision they've gone through over the last 5 years, they've really, relied on us and gone through it. They've also implemented Salesforce. Mm-hmm. That's a group that you just see the growth, and it's sort of paralleled our growth, and it's just been wonderful to see the impact that they're having on these kids' lives that deserve an opportunity for a better life, and that's what First Place is doing.
Can you give us a sense of you have these amazing stories, but is every day like that? Can you give us a sense of what's a typical day like for you?
Sometimes you have parking set aside for you, and you get chauffeured around the room, being introduced to people, and no, today's been a good day. What I love about my job is not only we now have 15 board members, so we started with 4, we have 15. Not only are they amazing, accomplished people in the business world, but they care about giving back. Then we have 20 people on staff now, and our staff is just amazing. I mean, I really think that we are at a point now where we've never been stronger in terms of the team at Tipping Point. So I can sit here for hours. I'm available all afternoon, so I don't even have to go back. They're so good. And then you get to meet the Sam Cobbses of the world and the Martha Ryans, and who runs Homeless Prenatal Program, and Erica Kish at Compass, and work with the KIPP schools and the Rocket. I mean, I get to work with amazing executive directors and amazing people in the nonprofit space who have dedicated their life to making others and our community better. Mm-hmm. And I get to see the best of everybody. So, my work is amazing. It's amazing.
In a recent YouTube clip, you talked about balancing...
This can't be good.
No, this is a good one. You talked about the challenges between accountability and holding someone accountable, like it sounds like Tipping Point wants to do with all your organizations, and still trusting and believing in people and in their vision. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, it goes back to metrics being a core part of what we do, but at the end of the day, it's one part. It cannot dominate. It can inform. But like I just mentioned, all of these executive directors are just, you have to be able to believe in the leaders that you're working with. You have to. I mean, it's just like anything else in life. It's really who you're partnering with. Who do you want to have a 10, 15-year relationship with? Mm-hmm. So there's a balance. We have amazing EDs, and if they're not performing, we have to have those conversations. And they're strong enough. They push back on us, saying maybe we need to give them longer. Maybe we're looking at the wrong things. Mm-hmm. But together we can get through it. So I think it's a balance. So that's how I would answer that.
So unlike a lot of other organizations, even during the financial recession, you were able to first maintain the same levels of funding and then grow. Yep. Was there anything you had to do specifically to adjust as the economy fell apart?
I think we started at a time, we were small. So I just think we're scratching the surface on our fundraising abilities on that front. I think the more people learn about Tipping Point, the more people learn about our model, the more people learn that this money is going to these excellent groups. I think the more they want to get involved. And I think we saw our community just come together in a way during that financial crisis, and people wanted to give. They wanted to know that their money would have an impact as well. And so I think we're able to get the word out now about our model and say, listen, if you want to have an impact right here in your own backyard, if you want to impact, children who are homeless in the public school system here in San Francisco, if you, want to help people get back into the job market, Tipping Point's a pretty good place to invest your dollars. And so I think as long as we can keep getting that story out, I think we can get through these difficult times on the fundraising part.
We have another question from Facebook here. This one's from Candace Novak, and it goes back to what you're talking about working in your own backyard. And her question is, how is San Francisco an advantageous city to live in for a budding nonprofiteer? Or is it, I guess?
No, I think we have some of the best nonprofit leaders out here. I think our culture is one that is, I think it's better than any other city in the country. Mm-hmm. I think people are open to innovation. We see it in the for-profit side, and we see it in the nonprofit side. So the only thing I would caution is that we have 15,000 nonprofits in the Bay Area working on social services. There are still holes in the sector. There's still, groups that are not being addressed or issues that are not being addressed. But I would say take a look around first, do kind of an analysis of the landscape before jumping in, because there's probably a group very similar, and maybe you can help improve that one before starting your own. But that's tough coming from me. So,
do you try and take the tipping point model and spread it to other cities? Are you in conversation with other nonprofit leaders in other cities?
There is a guy in Chicago who is trying to launch something called A Better Chicago. Mm-hmm. We've talked to people in LA and Texas, in Dallas, Boston. We've talked to people in Boston. We believe that we have so many issues right here in the Bay Area that our work should stay focused here. We're happy to and have provided advice and counsel to anybody thinking about starting this type of model. I mean, in 2005 or 2006, Bill Clinton wrote a book called Giving, and he was talking about Robin Hood, and he said, in every major city, and he noted that there was one kind of launching in San Francisco. That was us. He didn't say our name, though. I wish he would have said our name. That every major city where there's great wealth and there's great poverty, this model could work, and I subscribe to that. I believe that, and we're game to share whatever we've learned, and we've learned a tremendous amount from Robin Hood. Robin Hood's been very helpful to us. Paul Tudor Jones, who started it, is a donor to us. But we won't be going outside of the Bay Area.
So I saw this really great video of your annual fundraiser, and the one last year with the flash mob.
Yes.
That looked really cool, and with that, you raised a huge amount of money in one night. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit about the fundraiser and where you got the idea, and maybe a preview for what's coming up later on in May?
May 10th, if anybody wants to volunteer or come. This will be our sixth event. Last year we raised $6.6 million that night. It was a pretty staggering amount. Wow. We started off with the premise that people actually want to have fun at a fundraiser. And by the way, the dinner in November was really fun and really nice and low key, and I really liked it. So thank you again for that, Anne-Marie. Thank you. Father Prevet, thank you. So we try to have just a great group of people in a room. We try to have great music. We had Beck last year. We had 900 people. We sort of stepped it up and went from 600 people 2 years ago to 900 last year. Maybe got a little unwieldy. But then we had an after party where we had 900 more people come in for the concert portion with Beck. So the premise is make it fun. People will want to come back. Tell them about the message. But that night is really about a community coming together. And this year, we're going to really just express our gratitude and our thanks for our incredible community that has been so generous. And that's what the night's about.
So right out of school, you got started working for Bill Bradley's campaign, and you talked about that a little bit. And so one of my questions is, right now the governor's office is proposing to cut the Cal Grant program by $111 million. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, there's 943 students at USF who benefit from that. It would cost the university about $4 million in aid for those students. And it's only for students at private universities, private nonprofit universities, mm-hmm. and they lose 44% of their maximum Cal Grant award. So my questions for you is, what role do you have any advice for students on how to mobilize around this issue and how to basically advocate against it?
I think you gotta. Someone was saying they want to go up to Sacramento. A student mm-hmm. I was talking to work. I think you show up with the 900 and how many?
43.
943 students. You show up on the not the Hill, but in Sacramento, mm-hmm. And you have a unified voice. That would be hard to miss. That many students relying on that important aid. I'd go up to Sacramento first. Second, we're seeing this across the nonprofits that we support. I mean, you know, whether it's an after-school program or whether it's a housing program. I mean, there's cuts in every single issue area that we're addressing. And especially around education, I think it's shameful. We're sacrificing this country's future, the state's future, the city's future in this case.
Absolutely. All right, last serious question from me. Does Tipping Point have an end goal?
Our goal is to end poverty in the Bay Area, so that there aren't 1.3 million people living in poverty. We have obviously a lot of work to do. $12.6 million is a drop in the bucket compared to what the government can put in there. Our end goal is to continue is to see those numbers drop, and to make poverty preventable for families and try to break the cycle of poverty in the families that are living in it.
Okay. So one last thing before we get to the audience questions. We were going for a whole inside the actor's studio feel. That's why we've got these armchairs, got blue note cards instead of white. So I wanted to ask you James Lipton's famous ending questions, but they've been tweaked and added Jesuit style to them. So with that said...
You know I'm a son of a rabbi, right? Okay, go on.
With that said, what is your favorite word? Just one.
Taya. It's my daughter's name.
Aww. Wow, well, can't follow that. All right, what is your least favorite word?
Oh, God. You know, I wanted to say, I'd say need. We use it in our sector so much, and we talk about the need that people have. What we want to do is flip it and say, how can we provide opportunity to people so that they don't have to live in need?
What makes you happy?
Taya.
What makes you sad?
When my wife is upset with me.
Is she here?
She's not here. She's not here.
What sound do you love?
Oh, the Taya giggling.
What sound do you hate?
Taya crying. She's 10 months old. This is all new for me, so I'm just letting it all out. I'm sorry. I'm not very original, I know.
What's your favorite food?
Burritos.
What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
I'd love to be a smart VC and invest. If I was in the business sector, that's where I would be.
What profession would you not like to do?
Computer coding. That's what I did at Accenture Consulting right after the Bill Bradley campaign, and I realized I was not cut out for computer coding.
All right, last question. What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did good.
All right.